be the meeting.
Okay, and you have set me up for screen sharing?
I do as soon as people start talking, I give them the ability to share.
Okay, I won't share immediately because
I know that's why I don't turn it on.
in my practice I lose control of my screen for some reason or other. I can't get out of it. So anyway,
It's,
officially let's start the meeting with the
Okay, you now have share if you need it.
hope you could all hear that. But anyway,
Your volume's a little low. Can you turn
yeah,
it louder?
can you crank her up?
let me pump it up a little and see what happens.
Actually, I don't hear the noise in the background right now, Lynn.
Good.
Lynn was having problems with his computer drive making noise, and it was picked up on his microphone. So his voice and the noise from the hard drive were competing. So if he
Is
turns
that
it
any
up,
better, Jerry?
not by too much.
Didn't help much. One more option here. Let's see what happens.
Your mouth is moving. Oh, there we go.
Well, you'll just have to listen close, Jerry.
That's not too bad.
All right. Well, a little bit of background, and I'm happy that we can record our meetings because obviously I'd like the message to be able to be available to more people. So I'll share a little bit about myself. Some of you already know it. Some of you probably have heard it so many times you don't want to hear it again, but I'm a Michigan boy. I was born in Michigan. I was raised in Michigan. I got dirt under my fingernails from Michigan. I went to school in Michigan. I've worked in Michigan all my life, and here I am still in Michigan. I'm not a snowbird that goes out of the state in order to get warm in the wintertime and all that good kind of stuff. And so when it comes to the subject of polio, I was among that generation of sugar cubers. In our situation, that was the beginning of our treatment for polio. And perspective wise, polio is a virus. It particularly identifies with the nervous system, where the virus of the day, COVID, seems to attack organs particularly aimed at the lungs, and other underlying surface things that we don't even know yet. So we're living in a virus-oriented society temporarily, and in particular, Farmington Rotary represents an area that has been kind of important to polio throughout the endurance time that we had to deal with it directly. For those that might not know, the hospitals in southeastern Michigan, when they would diagnose a polio victim, typically sent them someplace. And one of the places that they transferred those types of patients was to Botsford, at that time, Botsford Children's Hospital. So Farmington has been in the network, so to speak, for a long time relative to polio. Polio, as you all know, is treated by Rotary as something that we made a promise to eradicate. That whole process started a little bit after I joined Rotary. I joined in the Detroit Club in 1974, and in 1985, shortly after I had transferred to the Farmington Rotary Club, Rotary took on the international scope of the promise of eradicating polio from the world. In '88 was when the actual program was defined and introduced internationally, and along with the help of Bill and Melinda Gates, World Health Organization, UNICEF, and many governmental programs around the world over the last 30 years brought us to a level of polio being 99% plus eradicated from most of the areas of the world. One good note is that Nigeria was declared to be polio free during 2020. And that means that they had no wild virus cases generated there in the last 3 years. So the two remaining are Afghanistan and Pakistan. And because of the duration of time and because of the remoteness of where it still exists, most people don't have any real appreciation of what polio was and what polio could be today. One of the things that brought me to Rotary in the first place was I was looking for an opportunity to join an organization that would help me give back something in effort and time and finances even on a limited basis, because I felt that was an important part of my life at the time. And so after a few years here being around polio, I have done, what I could when I could. The idea of a national immunization day was always intriguing to me, because when you stop to think about, as they published, immunizing 1 million or more children on a given day in the year, whenever that is, that was just outstanding to me. But individually, I was never in a position where I could personally participate. And to some extent that bothered me, but at the same time, if you don't have the money to do some things, you just don't do them. And so I missed out on NIDs, but I appreciate what they do. And I appreciate what goes into planning and organizing and accomplishing that wherever it happens in the world. And by the way, NIDs are not the only time that immunizations take place. Those are going on every day, wherever, because all of the children in the world need to be immunized, and certainly the young ones on a continuing basis, wherever there are new infants being born and children of a very young age, they all need to receive the vaccine. So it's been on my bucket list for a long time to do something individually, personally, that would help me make myself feel better about an individual effort to participate in a supportive way, a continuing effort to eradicate polio. And so this morning, I've got a little presentation to make, and Phil, I will start doing my sharing here.
Sure, no problem at all.
And hopefully it'll all go well. It did in practice, so we'll see what happens.
That's why we practice. Here we go. It's on the screen.
I'm hoping I can talk over with no problem.
Right now it's talking, no problem.
Oh, good. The gallery is still available.
Yes, that's what it should be normal. That's what you should see normally.
Okay, good. So my appeal today is to satisfy something on my bucket list and ask for help. And it's part of in polio now, as you can see with my pretty red shirt that I'm wearing. Something more to support the end polio effort. And that effort is simply to raise money in an assisting capacity, and here's the reason why. Labor Day next year, I plan to celebrate my 80th birthday. My actual birthday is on September 16th, and my brother's birthday is on September 6th. In 2021, he would have been 85. That happens to be Labor Day. So it's not so important that both of our birthdays be there, but I wanted to celebrate my 80th accomplishment of life in a different way. And walking the Mackinac Bridge was a method by which I thought would be something that I would enjoy and maybe other people would identify with who are Michiganders or are interested in Michigan. And so I invited, first of all, my grandson, who just turned 14, join me in walking the Mackinac Bridge on Labor Day 2021. So with that, I'm calling my program, which you will all hear more about in the future here between now and Labor Day, Pennies for Polio. I've done some other Pennies for Polio programs. I did a bowl-a-thon not too many years ago. But this one seems to fit the real essence of walking the bridge. So what I'm asking for is a penny a step. I've estimated, based on mileage, that it would be approximately 10,000 steps to complete a walk of the bridge. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of my Fitbit, that thing I wear on my wrist all the time, of the steps when I start the walk and the steps when I finish the walk. And hopefully it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 steps. So I'm asking anyone, absolutely anyone, anywhere, if they will pledge a penny a step for every step I take walking the bridge. We're going to try to make it as easy as possible and process any payments through PayPal. And at the end of the walk and before World Polio Day, we will generate an invoice through PayPal for anybody who registered on a per step basis. Basically, we're looking for pledge information from anybody who chooses to participate. And so the typical name, address, phone number, and how much you pledge can be sent to us in any format you wish. You can mail it in, make a copy, mail it in. You can send us an email with information or whatever you like. What I've suggested in some of my material is that if you want to make it easy on yourself and not wait for all those steps to be taken, you can just generate $100 as a pledge, because that's approximately what 10,000 steps would generate as a penny per step. But there's no amount that's too much and there's no amount that's too little. And if you pledge something else, that's fine. So you can send that kind of information to us whenever, and that can start today. So per step, pay a penny. Payments will be handled by Farmington Rotary to our PayPal account. or pledge a penny. Pledges by email or, as I said, by snail mail, whatever works. Just send it along. All pledges, all payments and pledges completed for $100 or more will receive a certificate of participation with the pledge contact information. So there's a second level. If you would choose to want to participate physically, you can do that. You can join me at the walk. It will be a fun and memorable experience. And for those that respond that way, I'll try to coordinate the starting time so that we can gather our red shirts. And it would be a happy day if I could have a cadre of red shirts walking the bridge at the same time. But I would suggest that if you choose to do so, plan in advance because there's a limited accommodation in the area of Mackinac City and or St. Ignace, depending. But plan in advance because it may not be something that you can drive in and say, do you have a room available? It may not happen on Labor Day because it is a rather popular event. And this is an idea from 2019 of what a bridge walk day might look like. So just a little bit of levity here for part of the presentation. This is a trick question. If you can guess what date the photos that follow was taken, if you can get that pretty close, then I will give you a small reward.
Well, I don't have an idea. I can't see the trick in it. There's no calendar out there.
No, a bridge looks like a bridge no matter when it's done. And that, of course, isn't part of the bridge, but there is something there that is not the hint that you're looking for.
There's a ship on the horizon, it looks like.
That's what it is. It's an ore freighter. So I'll just go back and go through those again because it won't take very long.
Jerry just said 1957 in the chat.
Pretty observant, Jerry.
Our person.
I think it was actually 1960, but the car was approximately 1957. So I owe you a cup of coffee the next time we meet. So recognition of polio efforts. You know, it would be nice to be able to list everybody that had an important role in the polio eradication effort, but all Rotarians have spent years raising money. They spent years organizing, planning, and implementing the NIDs around the world. Actually, many people from our district have been on NIDs immunizing the children directly. And all of the Rotarians, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, no matter what they did, they're outstanding in their leadership and the efforts of eradicating polio. But the one person that I like to identify, particularly with the polio effort, is past District Governor Keith Koch. He was governor before me in 2000 and 2001. And so most of my training and relationship with Keith was developed during those years, 1998, 1999, 2000, 2001. Keith was always identified strongly with all of the polio efforts. Unfortunately, and I know it's partially cut off, at least on my screen, unfortunately, Keith passed away last year, shortly, a couple of months shortly after his wife Marty passed away in 2019. He did not have the opportunity to see his longtime wish to see polio eradicated. So I'm hoping that I can last long enough that I will see that result. So that's,
Make sure you take the vaccine.
yeah, maybe that'll help. I hope that.
It'll help.
So information, you can get information by contacting farmingtonrotaryclub.org, and we will respond with specific information. There will be information out on the Farmington Rotary webpage with all the details and probably some FAQs for, you know, the high points. And donations can and should be made now, anytime between now and actually Labor Day, in any fashion. But if not by Labor Day, then we'll be sending the invoice that I mentioned earlier. World Polio Day in October will be our official day for submitting the program proceeds to End Polio Now, because at that time they will be matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, $2 for each dollar we raise, which is an intelligent way to go about it. So that's immunizing the children of the world, hopefully meeting our promise to eradicate polio. Well, this will take just a minute to load, but it's kind of just general information about the bridge walk information. So if anybody has a comment or would wish to ask a question, you can do
Yeah,
that before.
Farmington Rotary intends to make this a club-wide project with the option for people outside the club, other clubs, the community to join in. So the plan will be to allow people to obviously pledge for Lynn's walk, but if somebody else wants to do a walk, we'll record their information and make it possible for people to pledge for their walk. So we'll have other opportunities for doing that. There's a possibility, we've been discussing a possibility of having other walks going on throughout the year up to the bridge walk. They would be called bubble walks. They're basically tell people, here's a path around Farmington. If you walk that, count the miles, tell us how many times you did it, and that'll be a pledge. And you can do it at any time during, you know, the 6 months of the rest of the year. Tell us what you did, and we'll use that as a pledge system also. They'll be called a bubble walk, and you obviously don't want to walk in a crowd. You basically do the walk with your family or your kids and tell us you did 5 miles, and each time you did 5 miles, we'll add them up. So we're considering doing that to make this more of an awareness event as well as a fundraiser. If anybody else wants to add a comment, they can. Go ahead, Barry. Oh,
There we go. First off, Lynn, I'm very excited about what you're proposing here to us. Just want to say I'm glad that you made very specific mention of past District Governor Keith Koch. Keith was the president of our club here in Chatham in 86, 87, when the polio campaign fundraising actually got going in earnest. And then I followed him the year after he was president in 88, 89. Now, I'd just like to propose further. I heard from you, Cynthia, confirmed that you are the district trainer and you were an assistant governor. So might I suggest through you to incoming district governor Brenda that during your campaign of training for starting with pre-pets and then pets, that the concept that we're hearing from Lynn here would be spread out across the district by way of a challenge.
So I'm happy to talk with her. I know she's planning something for World Polio Day, but I don't know that we've got the details fleshed out. But this would be a nice way to dovetail. And I also know that we're planning to make the public image committee much more robust this year in terms of more Facebook posts, more website posts. So this would tie into that as well. So yeah, let me, Lynn, can you send me your PowerPoint?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lynn,
All
can
right.
you also, Lynn, can
Yeah.
you also turn off the share?
And if I could.
Thank you.
If I could say a bit further, first off, Lynn, I've got my Fitbit on here. And I do 10,000 a day or more. That's my objective. And over a space of 7 days, I will have done over 70,000.
Wow.
So what I might do, and I've done it before, is just make a donation straight into RI, click on the polio button and make my donation there, which probably, we don't have any pennies over here in Canada, but we do have loonies.
Hey, if you'd like to give me a Lunia step, that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd
So
have
I
to
would-
win the lottery first.
So I would make my donation right on the RI site, clicking on the polio button, and send a notation over to you that you can do that I've done it. Would that work?
Sure.
Sure, we can put that in the pledge information for
Yeah.
those that want to do it that way. That's fine.
You
Guess
can,
what I'd like to feel at the end of the program is that there were a lot of people who took steps, pardon the pun, toward eradicating polio. And so whether they pay it through Farmington Rotary or if they pay it directly to Rotary International, that doesn't make any difference to me because the end result is that it's raising money for the cause. So whatever I can do to make it acceptable to more people and interesting to more people, I'm happy to do that. I just needed something more than just Lynn Morgan's going for a walk to make it interesting to more people that might have an identity to the Mackinac Bridge.
Can you unmute Penny?
I'll make one other comment about
Thanks.
the bridge in my history. Those pictures that we looked at, that I took in approximately 1960, was shortly after the bridge was opened. It was important to my life because within the following year, I started attending Michigan Tech as the university that I attended. And so I can't tell you how many trips I've taken over the Mackinac Bridge. Never walking, of course, but back and forth and in all kinds of weather conditions and wind and ice and whatever else. I've watched a few trucks looking pretty tippy going across. So it's quite an experience, and I'm certainly looking forward to Labor Day.
Go ahead, Penny.
I was wondering if the donations that we make are applicable to our Paul Harris fellow. Do you understand? Who get credit for Paul Harris for the polio contribution?
I believe that polio contributions qualify for Paul Harris. And
but Penny, you'd have to make it just the way Barry suggested. You can make the donation to RI, to the
Yeah.
polio bus, and then do it in honor of Lynn. And
Yeah.
he'll get that notification. So that would be a nice thing. We do that quite frequently in our club because we have Cal Parrish who
Yeah.
matches donations. And so that's the way that we let him know that we've made a donation, is to honor him. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
So clearly, Penny, the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you.
And also just one other tangent, I guess, on raising the funds, when we deliver the funds, we could break that into a list of Paul Harris Fellows, depending on the amount, of who we would want to recognize for that purpose. For instance,
Yeah,
We'll find a way.
I could earmark $1,000 of it as a memorial Paul Harris for Keith Koch, just as an example. That possibility exists.
We'll find a way for members to be recognized for the
Right,
donation too.
because it's not something that I'm looking for personal recognition of a certain amount of money. It's not important to me. The amount of money is important. I'd like to raise as much as possible for obvious reasons, but I'm not looking for that recognition myself. So if we found a reason to give a Paul Harris recognition for some part of the funds, if they exceed $1,000, that's a possible kind of thing that we could do.
Lynn,
Yes, sir.
so just to prove that I'm doing it, you see 3,980 on there. That's what I've done already today.
Oh, good.
I thought that was a donation, 3,980. I thought, damn, he's good.
He got it confused. It was dollars per.
Yeah, I know. I just can't do math right.
You could change the title of this to pennies and loonies for polio. Yeah.
There you go.
When I would post it to Canada, I'd have to put loonies in there, in quotes.
I'll do it. I'll walk the Ambassador Bridge whenever you can get that done. No, I don't want to. No, I don't want to walk the Ambassador Bridge now to think of it.
Yeah, right.
It's an easier walk.
The new one.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Penny isn't for polio, Penny is against it.
Yay.
Okay. Just to clear that up,
So,
And he's against polio.
against polio.
Yeah, maybe
Well, Penny-
that's the campaign.
Penny, it's better to call you Penny than to call you Looney.
That's true, thank you. Appreciate it.
So Jerry and I were talking about this the other day, and a question that we couldn't answer. When the polio vaccine first came out, were only children vaccinated or were adults vaccinated as well?
Only children, I think.
Yeah, that's what we thought too, but
I believe it was only youth because it affected youth more quickly and more directly. And that's not to say that there weren't some adults that had the problem. Obviously, Franklin Roosevelt had.
right. And the Breathe movie is about someone who got it later. I mean, he was still a young adult, but he wasn't a child. So we were just talking about the difference between the COVID vaccine and polio and how that had rolled out. And we didn't know whether we somehow adults were vaccinated and we just didn't realize it, or.
Well, every mother's fear at the time was that their child would contract polio.
Mhm.
They weren't so much worried about themselves, but they were worried about their kids. And so in the immunization methodology, schools were the way of distributing the vaccine.
Mhm.
So by classroom, they would march down to the gymnasium and the sugar cubes would be plopped in their mouth with the vaccine, on the sugar cubes. That's the way it started.
Mhm.
Yes, there were some areas that went to the injection vaccine at some point in time. But in my case, when I was probably second or third grade, fourth grade maybe, that was the means of immunizing, and it was conveniently quick and easy, and the community was done. And the boosters for the next year or two, whatever it was, were again easy to do because it was the kids that were being immunized. So a slight difference, and the peculiarity of it is that now the COVID problem is more critical with the elderly.
Mhm.
So probably even today, the children don't have as much to risk as the adults, and the spread, and a lot of information that I seem to come across says that a kid might carry it to their grandparents, if you will, but not have any particular symptoms themselves of the problem. So it's a different kind of situation, but polio being nervous related and COVID being organ related seems to be what the real difference is between the two. I just wish that somehow we could, as Rotary within our own communities, get our communities more aware of what polio could be in a rather short order, because the comment that's always made is polio is only a plane ride away. And the evidence of that is how COVID has spread around the world.
Lynn,
All we're doing is kidding ourselves.
if I could add on to what you just said there, I like the whole idea of the multiplier effect. And just yesterday in our club Zoom meeting, we had our annual meeting, and our current club president, he was bragging about the fact that he walks 1 mile on our Rotary Eco Trail a day. To us, that's about 1.5 kilometers. And so it gives me the idea that, and we've also found out from the municipality, and people that live right beside the bush, that the number of walkers in there went up by a factor of 10 times during COVID times, 10 times. And the numbers are really high. So somehow we could take that as an opportunity here in Chatham to raise the profile of polio for the walkers that are in there, and we could have something.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
Bill's comments earlier about the bubble walk
Yeah.
would fit in that category very much, and I'm sure he'd be willing to share what he has discovered about the bubble walk.
Yeah.
But true, I would like to have 100 Rotarians in red shirts walking around Farmington.
Yeah.
I don't have the 100 Rotarians to do that on a regular basis, because if it's not done repetitiously, then people won't have the same identity with it. And I want to share a business comment about that. Part of my history has been as a real estate broker. And I was a broker as a part of the Century 21 organization. I bought one of the original franchises when they came into Michigan. I was instrumental in the Brokers Advisory Council, as we called it, because every franchisee had to pay monthly a certain amount into an advertising account. And the advertising people at that time convinced me, and obviously on an extended basis convinced an awful lot of people, that it's impressions. It's impressions that they're trying to make. It's what the news media is doing to us right now. They're impressing us with information that they want us to see and believe. Well, in advertising, same thing is true. If everybody every day saw a Century 20, even just once, that was an impression. If they saw it on TV, that was an impression. If they heard about it on the radio, that was an impression. If they saw it in print, that was an impression. The idea was to maximize impressions. And it's been a nemesis for me in Rotary to try to get Rotary as an impression in front of our community. Simple as that. It's an advertising necessity that if you can't get impressions, you're not going to get a response.
Yeah.
So that's, and I've, for the last 5 years at least, and you would probably like to throttle me for all my references to trying to get the word out to the community, but it's been what I've been trying to accomplish, and without more people, more Rotarians, or more interested people that will buy a shirt and walk around. We're just not getting the word in front of enough people to make a realizable impact.
Well,
Sorry.
to give a further testimony to Keith Koch, because of him, we have a lot of those polio shirts within our club. We do, actually.
Yep.
Thinking about impressions, Lynn, over to you, Jerry. Is there a way to extrapolate that across into the school systems?
Yeah, especially if we tap into our Interact clubs and the Rotaract clubs. I think that's.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
I know our Interact club always does, they do purple pinkies for polio, and Phil's aware of, we planted the crocuses, but so that organization would be the avenue to get to the youth.
Right.
That's excellent idea. Yes, interacts, and of course, how many interacts do we have across the district? A lot.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, basically, the idea is this is kind of the kickoff meeting announcing Lynn's Walk. But throughout the year, we're planning to try and link all of those things together, such as when the crocus finally show their head above the ground, we'll be announcing that, and hopefully we can get the media involved in that, and we can tag into that and say, and later in the year, we'll have bubble walks, and then the bridge walk in October or whenever the dates are, so that they can tie them all together. Our main goal for all of this is going to be awareness of Rotary and polio. So we'll be doing more of this through the year.
Good project. Thanks for sharing.
Cynthia, can I ask, is Tia Marie Sanders, is she still linked in strongly with the Interact clubs?
I don't think so, Barry. She's had COVID twice, I believe. So she's been sort of not very active. But I can tell you that there's, this is now the turnover for the district in terms of who's doing what. And Gabe Naranjo is going to take Rotaract and Interact under his wing.
Good.
And so he's probably someone that we should connect with too on this, because then you'd have the youth exchange, but you'd also have the Rotaract Interact. And so one of the things we have a problem with is we have clubs, but we have a few clubs that RI doesn't know about. They're active, but they're not certified. So we need to get that changed too. So
the Interact club, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been on my radar screen, because Bloomfield Hills, for instance, has an active club, but they're not certified. So Rotary doesn't recognize that.
Well, you mentioned we mentioned the Interact. No, there's at least one that I'm aware of, the Rotaract, very strong over in Michigan. On the campus, and they are a going concern. Hopefully they still are, so they could latch into this very well too.
And that's a great idea. And one of their more up and coming activists, so to speak, is a West Bloomfield High School graduate that we still are in touch with. So we should reach out to Andrew, Jerry, and loop him in. Yeah. And then our Interact club is, thanks to Phil, they planted crocuses at one of our elementary schools, and we're going to meet with the student council. The Interact club is doing a polio presentation to the student council at the end of this month. So there's some opportunities for synergy there too.
Maybe they can take a walk in the garden and see if any of the crocus are coming up.
Yeah, now they're actually in school, so I'm not exactly sure how we're going to meet, what the protocols are going to be. But
yeah, it's going to be tough.
Well, I think it's going to be virtual still, but they're going to educate these are 4th and 5th graders. They're going to talk about virus in general, COVID, but then carry back to polio.
Yeah,
and
good idea.
get them enthused. And I think there's going to be some fundraising there too. So I'll circle back with our Interact president and see and let her know about this so that we
Yep,
can
excellent.
loop all of this in.
As a bit of promotion, I'd like to refresh everybody's memory about February the 18th for this meeting. We will have Devanker Moody
Oh, great.
from the Wayne State University Rotaract Club as a
Oh,
speaker for that day. My interest in having him make a presentation is for the introduction to hopefully an interested group that might have Rotaract in their future ideas for the community. Farmington Hills, and certainly West Bloomfield are both ripe areas for having that level of Rotary represented. So I'm hoping we can get a really good attendance at that meeting to listen to Devanker's program. I attended a program that he did for a European group a few weeks ago, a month ago. Interesting thing, one of those participants me enough to send me a friend request on Facebook. And so now I'm in contact with that particular person regarding Rotary stuff particularly, but I think we all need to realize that youth at Interact age or Rotaract age are more and more and more important to Rotary as every day goes by, and we're not doing enough to bring them into the track. I could talk for a long time about Interact. That's 22 years of my life with the district. So
One thing you should know too, thanks for advertising the 18th. Next week, the 11th, we have John Noni coming as our speaker. So put that on your list too. Another polio advocate.
Mhm.
well, you know, Lynn, one of the highlights of my DG year was when I presented to the Rotaract Club on the campus of Ann Arbor, Michigan State, or U of M.
Yeah,
yeah,
And there were 40 there that night. They came out at 8 o'clock and they were there to 9 o'clock, and enthusiastic or what.
yeah,
And I was the first DG to actually present to the Rotaract Club there back in 87, 80, in 17, 18. And they connected me with the Rotaract Club at Wayne State.
good.
Yeah, so I identify with what you're referring to there, Lynn.
They have an interesting fundraiser going on currently. It's called a coming out party, because the young lady that you probably met at the time that you made your presentation is now moved on and married, and the obvious result is that she's expecting to deliver sometime in the not too distant future.
a new Rotarian.
And so they have, I'm not sure if she's a Rotaract or a Rotarian. Yeah, she is a Rotarian now.
Yeah,
And anyway, their fundraising is typical of a coming out
Yeah.
situation. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because Ann Arbor does have a pretty active Rotaract club. Wayne State does, but that's District 6400, so we
Yeah.
don't get much benefit from that. But I know that Devanker is a good talker, and if I could get some group of young people, 10 or a dozen would be fantastic, to set in the program and listen to what he has to say about his own experience. That would be something in our recording library that we could expand upon.
Yep.
Cynthia, I think over to Collier Smith, of course, is with the Ann Arbor Club. And I think he would be quite enthused about what we're talking about here, and especially thinking of the Rotaract Club there.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, his Ann Arbor Marathon is coming up too, so
Yes.
that's another connection for him to make. I'll see, I don't know, I think all of our Interact Club members are back face-to-face in school, so they may be in class at 8 o'clock, but I'll see what we can do. Devanker has come to speak to our club, our Interact Club, and our Rotary Club too. In the past, Jerry and I've had a connection with him since the peace conference. We met him there, and but the current Interact members would not know him because he spoke a couple of years ago. So let me see if I can scrounge up a few to attend. Jerry, will you give them a pass to skip school at 8 o'clock? No.
No,
All right. I'll ask their
we have
principal.
a hard enough time getting him to school.
Repetition is good for the emotions.
You have to have the right connections in the right places.
Yeah, apparently I don't. So
And by the way, I have a lot of confidence in Gabe, and you pass that on to Gabe. We would expect a lot from him.
I'll tell him you said that. He's great though. We like him.
Yeah, he's good.
Gotta run. I'm gonna see you guys, okay?
Okay, Jerry.
Do you have to go to work?
Yes.
Jerry is speaking to a national conference of superintendents and other educators about COVID
Wow.
Awesome.
Well,
at 10, I think, right?
I'm very impressed.
Okay, Lynn, it's over to you.
Thanks,
then,
Jerry. We're
I'm
going
very
to
impressed you're
officially
here,
end the
Jerry.
meeting, so if anybody else has to leave, it won't be a problem. And anyway, meeting of February 4th is now closed.
Okay,
Glad
Okay.
we're all here.
the recording will be up on the site probably later today.
Perfect. I've been
Okay,
watching
guys.
your recordings. I'm really enjoying that.
Thank you.
No, I think it's a great idea that you're doing that.
It
So,
works.
yeah.
Cynthia.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
See you next week.
Bye now.